Thanks for taking the time to download the Inside the Jungle podcast. To send along your feedback about this show, send your emails to insidethejungle@spnt.tv.
Hey, what's happening, Bengals fans? Inside the Jungle. We might have to restart this again, because Nick doesn't know what he's doing after 180 episodes. Pause. Let's try this again, shall we? Take two. Something's not right here. Hang on. You know what? It would help if I had my headphones on the correct way. All right, here we go. Let's try this again. We can edit all this out. That's the beauty of podcasting. All right, here we go.
Thanks for taking the time to download the Inside the Jungle podcast. To send along your feedback about this show, send your emails to insidethejungle@spnt.tv.
Hey, what's happening, Bengals fans? It's Inside the Jungle. The postseason continues on despite the Bengals not being in. We'll talk about some of the news around the NFL, in particular the news out in Denver about John Fox, and how that applies to the Cincinnati Bengals, and of course, free agency. What should the Bengals do here in 2014? It's all coming up on Inside the Jungle with Wednesday Night Roundtable.
This is the Wednesday Night Roundtable with Nick Superling, Mickey Menzer, Anthony Cosenza, and Scott Mantel.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are around the world. It's the Wednesday Night Roundtable, playoff edition. As the playoffs continue in the NFL. Glad you can join us on the Wednesday Night Roundtable. A lot to get to this week as I welcome in my my tag team partners. We're missing Mickey Menzer this week, who's he's off in outer space, enjoying some astronaut life down in Florida. So we missed him this week, but we welcome in my two friends, Anthony Cosenza over on the left coast. AC, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Good to be with you guys. We miss Mickey, but he's hobnobbing with some people a lot smarter than us, so hope he's having fun with the fam.
Yeah, a lot smarter, especially if you were watching us live and you missed the hilarious blooper that I started the show with, but that's okay. AC spent the day out at the NFLPA Bowl. We'll talk about that and his experience so far. We welcome in the one and only Scott Mantel. Scott, how you doing, man?
Doing wonderful, Nick. Like I said, I remember my first show. Not gonna give you too much crap about the start, but it was a bit amateur.
Yeah, 180 episodes in, and all it took was for me to reverse my headphones. As simple as that. Okay, then. Well, let's move on. If you want to get in touch, the number's 404-946-3397. If you're outside the country as well, Inside the Jungle is the Skype account. All right, I want to talk about the news that came out of Denver surprisingly this week, and that is John Fox being let go by the Denver Broncos. It was a quote-unquote mutual agreement, but I think we all know what really happened. John Elway certainly was not happy with the playoff results coming out of the Broncos. We know that they had been in the postseason the last 4 seasons, and they were one and done in 2 of those years, and they had a blowout loss in the Super Bowl a year ago against the Seattle Seahawks. So my question to you, and I'll start with you, AC, when the Bengals lose 4 consecutive wild card rounds, it seems as though somebody, a head coach of ours, gets a pass. I don't know why that is, but he does, or he gets extensions. Whereas that's unacceptable in Denver. Talk about the differences between the two organizations, and what does that tell you if you're a Bengals fan and this current ownership?
It's a great topic, Nick, and I know it's not specifically directed to the Bengals, but it can be segued over to their mindset in their front office. So I appreciate you bringing this up. I look at two things. Number one is organizational culture, and I've mentioned this sometime on some of the articles I post on Cincy Jungle and whatnot. I talk about organizational culture, and that kind of is something that a lot of people can relate to even outside of football. You know, if you work for a company that maybe accepts mediocrity, you're familiar with that sort of thing. Now, I'm not saying the Bengals are necessarily doing that, but I think that in the 90s and early 2000s, you saw a team that just was the worst in NFL football. And they are very scared to revert back to those ways in those days. And I think that, hey, you know, getting to the playoffs, winning the division every once in a while, and being very competitive pretty much every year under Marvin Lewis is acceptable to this ownership. And I don't know what that breaking point is and when it will be with this ownership if it continues. I mean, this coach has had 6 chances now, 2 different quarterbacks, different rosters, different coaching staffs, and he hasn't gotten it done. And they still say, hey, no changes needed. We're headed in the right direction. Some people still agree with that. They'll use the injury excuse as a crutch. But, you know, I mean, I don't necessarily buy into that fully. The other thing is also the Broncos have one of, if not the best quarterback in NFL history on their roster. And I think they look at that, and it's being led by another guy who was one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history as well. So you look at that, and they probably say, you know what, with this quarterback, this coaching staff should be getting more out of this team, and anything but a Lombardi trophy is unacceptable. So you look at the Broncos' history, particularly in the 90s, they were winning some Super Bowls and doing some good things. The team is now led by that quarterback who got them Super Bowls, and he's not accepting what's being seen in recent years, especially this year.
It's interesting when you look at the two organizations, Scott. And look, I know where Marvin Lewis came when he came to Cincinnati and he took over this franchise. It was in the darkest of dark spots. I mean, they were just the laughingstock of pro sports. But now they've made the postseason in 6 out of and basically half of the years that Marvin Lewis has been a coach in Cincinnati, and yet they can't get out of their own ways. And, you know, obviously they've run into some good teams like the Houston team a couple years ago, but last year had a golden opportunity to knock off San Diego at home, and yet here we are after another first-round loss to a team that wasn't exactly world beaters in Indy, very one-dimensional team, but yet again could not do anything to even make it a game. So you look at the Broncos, you look at the Bengals, and you see the two situations. What's your take on the fact that the Broncos don't settle for just getting to the postseason, whereas here in Cincinnati it's almost like a playoff win, the fact that they made it to the postseason?
Yeah, and I think that's where the frustration amongst fans comes in with this organization. I think Anthony hit it on the head with just the organizational culture. This is a franchise that, before Marvin Lewis came here, they had 11 of the 12 seasons under Mike Brown were losing seasons. The only non-losing season was an 8-8 finish. So, that's what he was dealing, with before he got Marvin Lewis. So, in Mike Brown's eyes, Marvin Lewis has essentially been the savior. And, we talk about why wouldn't he make change now after 4 straight playoff games? Well, he was hesitant to make change after 12 straight non-winning seasons. This is a guy that kept Dave Shula around for 71 games, to go 12-59. So this is a guy that doesn't like change. We've talked about before on the show, it stems from his experience with his father being fired, which I think most of us can appreciate. But when you're wanting to win championships, sometimes you got to make change. Sometimes the voice gets stale, and I think that's where we've reached with Marvin Lewis. And I think the one thing that drives me crazy, and I think fans as well, is when Mike Brown does talk, you never hear him talk in terms of championships. The championship never seems to be his goal. His goal seems to be, even when he got the stadium built, was we need the stadium to be competitive. It wasn't that we need the stadium to be a championship team. You know, he talks in terms of competitiveness, and the Bengals are competitive. Unfortunately, I don't think championships seem that important to the Brown family.
Well, what exactly, what from a competitive standpoint, what exactly does that stadium bring you? Does it make you play better on Sundays? Does it attract free agents? Because AC, as you have well documented, free agents don't necessarily want to come to Cincinnati, despite that beautiful stadium down on the river.
Yeah, I mean, the stadium is having state-of-the-art facilities. Obviously, I mean, it's kind of almost a college recruiting tool as well. I mean, you know, these kids that get brought into these big programs, and you know, they see this immaculate weight room and the big, you know, they get kind of blown away a little bit. I think obviously having a newer stadium that helps, but I mean, there's the ticky-tack stuff you want to pick on. They still don't have their own indoor facility, and being one of the colder cities in the NFL housing a team, I mean, you would think that they would have their own and not go to a nearby college and use their facilities in that respect. And I mean, that's a little thing, and I still think, even though I think there are paycheck players in the NFL that just want to get paid the most that they can get, and it doesn't matter where they go. I think there are players that are at the end of their careers and want to win a championship, and it doesn't matter what they make. And there's guys in the middle, and sometimes those guys in the middle are the big free agents that you want to kind of land, and/or rotational guys you want to add to your roster. And they may say, "Hey, I'm getting a comparable contract from the Bengals and whatever other team, and whatever other team has a better infrastructure, better history, better coaching, whatever that's perceived out there," and they will choose them over the Bengals. I don't know if that's for sure what's happening, but I think that's the perception. And I think that the Bengals have a reputation, even though they pay their players and they've been giving out some big extensions. I think they have a reputation for being one of the cheaper franchises. I think they have a reputation for being one of the franchises that says, "Hey, nobody else really wanted you. We'll give you this contract. Come play with us, play some good football, and either we'll pay you beyond that, or you know, you can find another job with another franchise." And I don't know if you want to call it a stepping stone franchise or last resort type of thing, whatever you want to call it. There still is, even with all of the good things that they've done recently, there still is a certain perception around this team, and I think certain big ticket free agents notice that.
Yeah, no, basically, this all we're talking about the fact that John Fox was fired in Denver for not doing well enough in the postseason, and how just looking at the two differences between the two franchises and how far away they really are. And what's surprising is, you know, the Bengals just showed a couple weeks ago that they could beat Denver, but let's be honest, I don't think there were a lot of people around the NFL, and even you could argue even within the Bengals fan base, that thought that this Bengals team, the way it is currently set up, was going to make any damage in the postseason, especially the way they had played down the stretch. That's I guess when you look at the two franchises, Scott. I mean, they're night and day. They're nowhere close.
Well, I would actually disagree with you as far as the franchise being night and day, and here's why. Is if you recall, before Peyton Manning became a Bronco, the Broncos were not a great team. You know, they made the playoffs that year with Tebow, but prior to that,
and they got a win. They got one more win than we have.
And they do have one more win than we have. And Tim Tebow has as many wins in the playoffs in Denver as Peyton Manning does. So, you know, it's easy for a franchise to all of a sudden look good when they land Peyton Manning. The question will be is, you know, when Peyton Manning's gone, do the Broncos just revert back to the fairly unsuccessful franchise they were for about a 10-year period there? You know, it'll be interesting to see, but I don't see Brock Osweiler being a good building block. So once Manning leaves, where are they going with quarterback?
Yeah, and to add insult to injury, Nick, about this entire conversation, I mean, we're talking about a coach that went to the Super Bowl last year, and granted they got blown out, but went to the Super Bowl last year, had another good season this year, and they called it a mutual parting of ways. I think we all kind of we can all kind of assume maybe what happened there, but you look at that, and Fox is kind of pushed out the door, and then you look at what's been kind of going a little bit viral on Twitter the past couple of days, in that there's a chart of the length of all of the teams in the NFL and how long it's been since each one of them have won a playoff game, and the Bengals are on the very back end of that spectrum, being the longest tenured team without a playoff win. And you go, well, okay, I mean, I guess we're kind of just sitting here and treading water a little bit.
Well, you can sense the frustration in your voice. You can sense it in mine and everybody else's around Cincinnati. It's been. I'm not saying, and this topic was not brought up to say that Marvin Lewis needs to be fired, because I think he does offer some good things with this team. He brings you stability, which we have seen has its benefits. But at the same time, you look at the courses of action that just happened out in Denver. We saw it in Indy with Jim Caldwell, a guy who won a lot of games for the Indianapolis Colts as their head coach. He got the axe after we saw what happened when he didn't have Peyton Manning. I don't know. I guess I look at the way the organization is currently run and how the status quo is okay, as long as I guess they're getting into the postseason. I guess that's really all that matters, which I guess is the most frustrating and disappointing part of this whole discussion. When you look at where the Broncos' aspirations are and where the Bengals' aspirations are. I'm not saying that the Bengals don't want to go out and win a Super Bowl. I think we all know that they do. That's the goal for everybody. But that's a big move to make when you fire a coach like John Fox, who has been to multiple Super Bowls and has a winning record, and yet their window of opportunity might be even shorter than the Bengals' current window of opportunity, which is even more crazy to think about. So yeah, that's the big news. John Fox fired this week. I thought that was an interesting way to look at the way the current Bengals are right now. What I'm really interested about, we'll talk about the NFLPA Bowl here in a second, AC, but the conversation in the chat room, which we do this live every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern, has primarily been dominated by the one and only Cardale Jones from Ohio State, the newly crowned college football playoff champions, Ohio State, which I'm sure Mickey is reveling in right now down in Florida. But there's a discussion about Cardale Jones and whether or not he should leave Ohio State to become eligible for the NFL draft, and whether or not the Bengals should consider drafting him. So, Scott, I'm going to kick it over to you, and I know AC is shaking his head. Cardale Jones, we have 3 games of film on him. So is he somebody you take a look at maybe?
I actually would. Watching Cardale Jones the last few games, got me kind of excited. And when I say I would take him, that's with a caveat. I'm not going to use a first or second round pick on the guy, but in the 3rd or 4th round, I would give it a thought. What I've seen of the guy has been pretty impressive. I don't think he's a guy that can come in and start. For a team like the Bengals, they wouldn't need him to, though. Like it or not, Andy Dalton's your starting quarterback next year, regardless. So you wouldn't be bringing him in to compete this year. But next year, the Bengals could get out from underneath Dalton's contract, or within the next 2 years they could. And if they decide to get out of Dalton's contract and walk away, it would be nice to have a big athletic quarterback like Jones. He's got he looked very accurate from what I saw. His arm is extremely strong. He's a big guy. He can run. The Bengals under Andy Dalton are not going to be bad enough to get a top quarterback. So if they're not going to stick with him long term, they're going to have to find someone later in the drafts to develop. And maybe Cardale Jones could be that guy.
Bobby Carl in the chat room, AC, says Cardale is the football love child of Big Ben and Cam Newton. Would you agree?
No. I mean, the guy played pretty well the last 3 games, and he had 2 very impressive wins against Alabama and Oregon.
And a thumping of Wisconsin.
Yeah, but I mean, you look at it, and you look at that team, and all three quarterbacks under Urban Meyer in that system experienced massive success. So is that a system guy? And that could be an argument also for Marcus Mariota too. Don't get me wrong about that. That's not me being a Pac-12 guy. That's just how it is. And you also have only three games of tape on the guy as opposed to an entire season's worth. I mean, who knows if he steps in for an entire season and kind of plays football. You know what I mean? I think there are, and it's okay, but to the fans of the Bengals, a lot of which are Ohio State fans, and I think they also kind of get a little bit revved up, and I think that also you can go back last year even to the Carlos Hyde, Jeremy Hill debate, and everybody thought Carlos Hyde was the much better prospect and this and that. Now that's not to say that he's not going to be a good pro going forward, but I think now you look at it a year into NFL play, and Jeremy Hill was the right pick, at least for the Bengals. So I think for me, Cardale Jones, impressive, big guy, like the arm, like the confidence, like a lot of things I saw out of him, but I think there's more to be seen there. Now, if we're talking a high pick, if we're talking a late-round flyer, that's two different things. I don't know. I'm not totally bought in on the guy. So that's just kind of me, but he had an impressive stretch of games, but I kind of need to see a little more from where I sit.
Well, the impressive stretch of games, let's not forget, I mean, this was, your first start being in a Big Ten championship game against Wisconsin, who's no slouch, and then your second start going up against Alabama, Nick Saban's Alabama, and they still managed to score 42 points with him at the helm. And then to go and knock off an Oregon team, score another 40 points against a really good opponent in Oregon. Now, I guess the reason why I would consider him if I'm the Bengals, and this is the question we've been asking about Andy Dalton over the last 4 seasons, is the clutch gene. Does Andy Dalton have the clutch gene? And I don't know, and I can't say that he does. But to go out and win 3 huge games in your first 3 starts, Scott, I don't know if that's ever been done in college football. And if I'm him, he may not even be the starter next year for Ohio State. So you've got to think about his options, and he's probably thinking, man, if I'm going to be a backup, I'm going to go be paid to be a backup.
Yeah, and that's a big decision he has to make. I didn't realize it at the time, but I think he's 22 or 23 years old, so it's not like he's a real young guy either. He also just had a child, so getting to the NFL and making some money, may be on his mind. I mean, he's not like I said, he's not an 18 or 19 or 20-year-old kid. He's 22, 23 with a child, so he may be looking to get out there and get paid. And I agree with Anthony. I would not use a first or second round pick. I'm even hesitant to say third. 4th round is where I'd start looking at him because, again, anyone the Bengals are bringing in, be it a free agent or a draft pick, is being brought in to sit behind Andy Dalton. So, you don't want to use a high pick on a good team for a guy that's not going to play. I did like what I see. I did like the clutch gene, if you will, that we saw with him. Like you said, yes, it's only 3 games, but they were 3 really impressive games against 3 really good college football teams. So, and on 3 really big stages. So that's something we haven't seen out of Dalton. So I don't know. I'm intrigued by the guy. If they were to take a mid-round flyer on him, but like Anthony said, I wouldn't be investing a high pick in him.
All right, so I'll ask this to you, AC, and to you as well, Scott. If you're the Bengals and Cardale Jones is there in the 3rd round, yes or no, do you take him?
Oh man, you could tell I'm stumbling over my.
First round's not high enough that you're wasting a spot, but at the same time, like, will he be there in the 4th round? So
you're talking 2015 draft. 3rd round, Cardale Jones is there. Do you take him if you're the Bengals? That's what you're asking me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. From where I would sit, I would say no, and here's why. I'm channeling the Bengals front office mindset, and I would say no because I think, as Scott said, they give Dalton another year, and I think the plan this year is to, again, surround Dalton with as much weapons as possible and solidify the trenches on both offensive and defensive lines, maybe some linebackers sprinkled in there as well. I think that's the plan for this year. If Dalton falters again, then you really look at a quarterback some point next year. So I'd be intrigued, but if I'm the Bengals, I probably wouldn't do it. The one thing that would maybe throw me off a little bit is them passing on some of these quarterbacks that they've seen have had some relative success. Teddy Bridgewater immediately comes to mind over the past couple of years. So it'd be intriguing, but if I'm channeling the Bengals mindset, I would say no.
5th round?
Then yes, 5th round, yeah, I would.
All right, that's fair. That's okay, but I don't know if he will last that long. From some of the stuff I've seen 5th, 6th. I've also seen 1st and 2nd round. Scott, how about you? If you're the Bengals in the 3rd round, is it something you consider?
I'm taking him. And one of the reasons is because it's so un-Bengal-like. I don't know if they're going to necessarily get someone that's going to give them a huge amount of help in the 3rd round. Obviously, Cardale Jones wouldn't give them any help next year. But you're talking about a guy who, if he does come back to college, it is a big if he starts, because he's not even guaranteed to start a role on Ohio State, could become a top 5 or 10 pick next year. So it's possible, if you're not happy with Dalton at the end of next year, that you could have a guy backing him up that may have been a top 5 or 10 pick the following year. He's got a year in the system. I go for it because it's just not Bengal-like.
It's an interesting debate, and you know what? I cannot believe we're talking this much about Ohio State and Mickey not being here. How ironic is that? It's a look, and I'm not anti-Dalton. I'm not pro-Dalton. I'm pro-winning, as I've said in recent weeks. I just want them to win, and I want them to win in the postseason. And I've seen enough in 4 games that I have my doubts about our current quarterback. That's just my take. Those are my thoughts. I think he's an excellent regular season quarterback when it's a 1 o'clock game and a 4 o'clock game maybe, but I have seen enough that I'm sure AC you would agree with me as well. I think we know where we stand with our current quarterback.
It's Cody and I talked about it today. I mean, he's good enough, and I think that plays into the mindset of what we were talking about with John Fox and the whole coaching thing. He's good enough, and that may be, as weird as it sounds, good enough for management. He wins regular season games, gets into the playoffs, and that's about it. But I think a lot of people would like to. I think most fans rationally would like to see improvement from Dalton, because I think they really like Dalton the guy, and they want to see Dalton be the guy that takes him to the next level. But I think they're also realizing that there are limitations there, and they say, you know what, he's just not going to be that guy to do that, so let's look elsewhere. And I mean, there are flyer picks like Cardale Jones. It could be, interesting like that. But I mean, I said it in the chat room. I mean, how many Ohio State quarterbacks have really been that successful in the NFL, especially recently? I mean, there's probably some. I can't think of any really off the top of my mind, and that's not really a fair assessment of Cardale Jones per se. But I mean, you got to kind of look at that a little bit as well.
It's not just Ohio State quarterbacks too, Scott. It's Urban Meyer quarterbacks. We've seen it with Tim Tebow. We saw it with Alex Smith. You could argue that Smith has had some success in the NFL, but he's not a world beater.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that argument, but I don't buy it. It's kind of the same of like, hey, the Bengals haven't won since in the playoffs under Marvin Lewis. Those were all different teams. I mean, the history really doesn't have any effect on the current team. And those quarterbacks in the past from Ohio State came out from different systems. You could look at a lot of successful quarterbacks and say before they came out, Aaron Rodgers, how many successful quarterbacks did Cal have in the NFL? I mean, Tony Romo has been a pretty successful quarterback. How many quarterbacks where did he go? Eastern Illinois. I mean, we could go down the list. There's not a whole lot of schools that have a long track record of successful NFL quarterbacks. So, I think the how many has Ohio State have or had is just a weak argument.
Well, I'd love to get your thoughts, Bengals fans. If you want to get in touch here on the program, 404-946-3397 is the number to call as we welcome in the one and only John from Kentucky. John, how you doing, man?
Hey, Nick. Always a pleasure to be on your podcast. I hope everybody's doing okay. And I've been listening to what you've been talking about. This guy, Cardale Jones from Ohio State. I mean, I don't know. I think we're pulling the gun way too heavily on Dalton right now. I think, it helps to have some tight ends in the NFL, and it also helps to have some decent wide receivers in the NFL. And when you have a lot of people hurt, I just think we're kind of pulling the gun on him. And the more I look past this past season, the Bengals, they were just lucky to be where they were. They did beat Baltimore twice, and they did win a big primetime game, but this past playoff game against the Colts, I don't think you're winning that game, no matter who's quarterbacking, without any real top players available to play. But I will say this: I think we very well could be looking at Marvin Lewis's and possibly Andy Dalton's last season in Cincinnati if they don't perform this coming season. That's just an opinion, but even the Bengals, I do think, have their limits. I mean, if we think, Marvin Lewis is going to be here for 25 years, just no, that's not going to happen, okay? He's on a one-year contract, and their patience with him is, I really do think it's wearing thin. They have to run deep in the playoffs this next season, or there are major changes that are going to come down the pike. That's just my opinion. What do you think?
Well, I'd like to say I agree with you, but I don't, because the Bengals and Mike Brown has not shown any willingness to make changes in the last couple of years. We saw it after a 4-12 year. Marvin Lewis got an extension. We all thought he was out, and yet here he was. And I'm thankful, I guess, that he was still the coach of this team over the last. I think it's been 6 years since that. Maybe it was 4 years since that interesting press conference after the season. So yeah, I mean, he is on a one-year deal, basically, but at the same time, I would not be shocked at all if they extended him before the season, like they did last year. That's just that's my take on it. I'm sure, Scott, you seem to agree with me as well.
Yeah, I think what's going to be telling is what did they do with Marvin Lewis in the offseason. I think it's clear they're not going to fire him, but will they give him that extension like they did last year? I think they gave him that one-year extension basically as a way of saying you're not a lame duck coach. But if they don't offer him that one-year extension this year, I kind of agree with John that if he goes into the season without another year on his contract, I think it's Mike Brown's way of firing him without firing him. It's his way of saying, we've got to win in the playoffs this year, or I'm going to let your contract expire and we'll go somewhere else. Then he doesn't have to fire him, but they can also move on. So I think it'll be telling if they extend him or don't extend him before the year.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's if I had to make a prediction, I don't see an extension, and it's like you said, Scott. That's going to be a way of basically telling him, if you want to be extended, it will be done after your playoff win in 2016. If that playoff win does not occur, neither will your extension, and the Bengals will move on. Sooner or later, it's just going to be impossible to sell tickets to people that want to see the same old coach and the team just do the same old things. And Mike Brown, even though he doesn't really get any of that ticket revenue, his vendors and the box seat sales and whatnot, those people start giving him an earful when people don't start coming to the games. I'm talking if attendance really goes down, and it will. Mike Brown is the kind of owner that never smells smoke. I mean, he waits until the place is on fire. Just like when Carson Palmer told him he ain't playing for him no more. Trade me or I quit. That's when he does something, when he's literally forced to. And I firmly believe if you keep Coach Lewis here, and even Andy Dalton perhaps, and the team fails to go any further, people are just going to lose interest. and you know the people that buy tickets, they do have a voice. They're in a pretty strong position if their numbers, you know, really start to dwindle. And I firmly see that happening. It's happened in Cincinnati before. So, I mean, that's my bold prediction. And, well, it's not really that bold. It's just my prediction for the season. And, you know, people are always saying, well, let's not forget the 90s. You know, the 90s, it's 2015. You know, the last year of the 90s was 16 years ago. And, you know, there are a lot of young people now that are following the Bengals. So tell them to remember the 90s. You might as well tell them to remember the Alamo. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's, you know, it's time to move forward and say, you know, why has this coach been here for 13 years, and why does this team not make changes? So it's just all going to come down to, you know, keeping the fans' interest. And those tickets are not cheap, and I think that will be a telltale sign here within the next year, perhaps 2 years at the most. That's my opinion. So, hey, it's great talking to you guys again. And there is a podcast next week. Is that correct? Is
every Wednesday, John. You know it.
All right. Well, that's good. It's good to know. One more thing. People were saying, you know, how come Hugh Jackson hadn't been a head coach? Well, if you like Hugh Jackson, why even ask, you know, how come he's not a head coach? I mean, you don't want him to leave. So the Jackson supporters ought to be happy that he's still here. And I think we're going to look. Another opinion. I think the Bengals dominate the AFC North next year. They get the players healthy. I mean, Pittsburgh and Baltimore in their salary cap situation. I mean, they did not push Cincinnati around this year. I mean, yeah, they did. Pittsburgh beat Cincinnati twice, but nevertheless, the Bengals are under Marvin Lewis. Would you agree with this, Nick? They're a major pain in the neck for Pittsburgh and Baltimore to fool with now. Because those teams used to just walk into the playoffs. They have not done that the last 4 years. They are struggling, trying to get a better record than Cincinnati has. That's fair enough to say, isn't it?
Yeah, I would agree that they're a thorn. I mean, they're a factor in the AFC North year after year. Just look at the roster and the way it's currently set up. I agree with you that it's not just Pittsburgh or Baltimore to lose anymore. They are a factor, and they have shown it over the last 4 years. As far as them dominating the AFC North next year, I think we were fortunate we caught Baltimore at the right time this year, both weeks that we played them. But what I will tell you is that it will be a close division next year. I don't know who will win it, but it'll be a fun one, and that's why it's the best division in football.
Well, that's right. I mean, I think every team was 7-4 in the division this year, and I think that was the first time that ever happened. You know, and I'll say this. The Cleveland Browns, just quickly, if somebody was to ask me that doesn't know anything about the NFL, if they asked my opinion, what is the hardest coaching job in the NFL, I would probably say Cleveland. Because don't ask me to coach against Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and even Cincinnati, who's been in the playoffs 4 years. And so if you ask me probably the second hardest coaching job, it very well could be Cincinnati. Just for the fact that you got to fool with Pittsburgh and Baltimore and sometimes even Cleveland, you know. So Marvin Lewis's job itself is probably, in my opinion, the second hardest job in the NFL. And there are not a lot of people that are just banging on Mike Brown's front door saying, hey, fire that guy, hire me right now. No, because they know that, you know, with or without Mike Brown, it's not an easy division to get through. Just trying to get a winning season and then much less go on to the Super Bowl. So the cards are stacked against Cincinnati any which way you see it. So, but nevertheless, you can't just keep, you know, the same coach from here to eternity. Sooner or later, people lose interest. You know, if you don't win a Super Bowl or playoff games, sooner or later, people just want somebody else to talk about at the end of the year rather than the same old guy. So anyway, look, I'm sitting here rambling. It was great talking to you guys, okay? And I'll be calling in next week, okay?
I appreciate the call, John. Who day, man?
All right, later.
That's John from Kentucky here on the Jungle Line. He's bringing it. He's on fire tonight, guys. The division itself is brutal. When we beat each other up, we saw it banged up a Steelers team in the postseason. You took out their best player there in week 16 or week 17, and so they had no Le'Veon Bell in the playoffs, and you could say the same about us. We were a very banged up team, both on offense and defense, and it showed late in the year. So yeah, it's a brutal division, and maybe there's a reason why Marvin Lewis is still sticking around, is because he has so much familiarity with it, and he knows how to win in the division. The question mark will always be, can he win in the postseason? And that's the golden question. And it's not exactly fair on Dalton to place the blame on him, because I know there are defensive issues that have happened in the playoffs. And he also didn't have hardly any of his receiving targets there in the postseason game against the Colts. So it's not exactly completely fair, but at the same time, 0-4 speak volumes, AC.
Yeah, kudos to John. He made a lot of good points, and I'm trying to collect my thoughts to respond to each of those. Yes, this division beats up on each other, and that's just kind of how it is. Doug Pettin, the coach of the Cleveland Browns, I would argue was one of the better coaches this year based on the overall talent of his team, the talent at the quarterback position, and I think he was forced to play Johnny Manziel by upper management, fan pressure, all of that sort of nonsense that goes into that. And I thought he did a very good job with that team, and that's been a team I've noticed that's kind of been a little bit on the rise the past couple of years. So I don't know, as you mentioned, Nick, I don't know that I see the Bengals dominating this division going forward. I mean, the Steelers have, we kind of thought the Steelers might have been a 7-9, 8-8 team going into this year, and they did some good things this year. The Ravens went pretty far into the postseason, and the Bengals are right there as well. And to John's point about, hey, the Bengals are a thorn in the Ravens and the Steelers' side. Yeah, they are, and that's great. But you know what? Why not be the Patriots of the division and say, hey, we got a gun for these guys. This is the shining beacon of this division. That's what all of the three other teams want to strive for, is, hey, we want to be like the Bengals. And I don't obviously see that with this franchise for a number of different reasons. And then he mentioned also about, this job maybe not being so desirable because of how competitive it is. Yeah, that probably plays into it, but you got to also look at the ownership. We talked about organizational culture. All of those things probably also play into the factors of, hey, if we do let go of Marvin Lewis, who are we going to be able to get? We may have a short list of coaches that we want, but we may only be able to get the bottom part of that list because of who we are. And I don't know if that's true, but it might be the case based on the other desirable jobs that could be out there. So those are some of the things that kind of sprang to mind as John was talking through his points there, but great phone call.
Yeah, excellent phone call. And, we talk about coaching news. We didn't even mention the fact that Dick LeBeau resigned as defensive coordinator of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so there's going to be changes for them moving forward as well defensively. And he's a Hall of Fame coordinator. He's a fantastic coach. We know from his time here in Cincinnati it didn't work out as a head coach, but we know you can never question his abilities, game planning and scheming from a defensive side of things. So the division itself will be changing moving forward with the fact that LeBeau is not around in Pittsburgh. And so who knows what will happen in Pittsburgh. I had mentioned last week that we were going to go and grade each of the position groups. What I want to do that next week. I want to kick that off starting next week. Hopefully we'll have Mickey back and we can throw him into the mix, talking about the individual position groups and giving some grades as far as the coaching and the players. But we got an interesting tweet this week from Fadl, our friend from Malta. He wanted to know, he's asking us, from all the unrestricted free agents currently on this Bengals roster, who would you like the Bengals to sign this offseason? So, Scott, I'm going to throw it to you first, because I know you did an article about it this week on CincyJungle.com. From all the unrestricted free agents, who would you most like to see the Bengals re-sign?
Well, there's a couple. I think there's a couple I hope they don't re-sign, that being Gresham, Terrence Newman. As far as guys I would like them to re-sign, the ones I'm kicking around are Emmanuel Lemure, Ray Maluga, and Clint Bowling. I think if I was going to pick one, it would be very close for me between Lemure and Bowling. I would go with Lemieux, though. Lemieux would be the top guy on my list for their free agents.
That's an interesting pick, Scott, because Lemieux, though there's a lot of upside with him, he has shown the inability to stay healthy.
Yep, and hence why I'm a little bit hesitant about that pick. I think of the players, though, that they have becoming free agents, he's the one that has the most upside, and maybe the most difficult to replace from an athletic standpoint. So I hear on the injuries, valid point, but Lemieux's my guy.
Doc Ox in the chat room, AC, he's saying re-sign Mauluga, which I know is near and dear to your USC heart. So if you had to pick out of the current crop of unrestricted free agents on this team, who are you most wanting to sign this offseason?
It's really tough because there are a lot of guys that you're kind of on the fence with. You know, there's the Greshams, Maulugas, even a guy like Taylor Mays, and you know, there were some ups and downs from Lemieux. I do like some of the athleticism he brings to the linebacker position, but he was nicked up. There's some, you know, even though he's pretty good in coverage, he was a little bit of a liability in some of the more physical plays, run plays, tackling, that sort of thing. So you kind of sit here and you go, well, this guy has this, but he doesn't have this, and that's what makes it tough. I like Clint Bowling a lot. I think this offensive line has done pretty well for what they're asked to do, and I think they really stepped up the run game late in the season. And I think, you know, a lot of people sat here and you go, hey, draft an offensive tackle in the 2014 draft and kick Whitworth inside to guard and kind of say, hey, Bowling, you're a backup. And, you know, Bowling came in and he played decent football for him. But is decent good enough? Do you want a dominant offensive line? That's the question. I like Bowling the most out of that list. You know, there's some guys you're on the fence with, as I mentioned, Gresham, Mauluga, even Mays. He's a special teams guy and kind of spot player. Where I sit, and this is kind of a foreshadowing to some of the stuff I'm going to be putting up on the website, but I'd like to see this team really breed competition at almost every spot that they can. And I'd like to see them re-sign a lot of these guys, but also bring in either free agents and or draft picks at some of these spots and say, hey, you guys compete. You know, we had some injuries. We were a good team last year. We had some injuries at some spots, and we weren't able to really fill these as adequately as we thought we were able to. And you know, we want the best guys on this roster. And I think they relied a little bit on some of those undrafted free agents, late round picks, and they said, hey, you know, these guys can kind of spot play for us a little bit. And when they were pressed into some of these bigger roles, it was kind of a little too much for them early on. So I'd like to see them re-sign a couple of the bigger names on there, but also bring in guys at those same spots and have them, hey, you know, compete. Best guy wins, and that's how we're going to build our team.
So let me ask you this question, Anthony. Which Bengals team have you been watching over the last 4 off seasons? Because they don't bring anybody in free agency.
Right. The lone exception is the 2013 offseason. I mean, they re-signed in the teens of their own guys in terms of contracts and or contract extensions. They brought in some good free agent outside guys, and then all of a sudden in 2014, when you really thought, hey, this year's the year. You know, this is the year. They really just kind of sat on their hands, and that was really disappointing. And you look at some of these teams that are either still in it or got another round ahead in the playoffs than the Bengals, and they weren't resting on their laurels. You know, they said, hey, you know, we have some weaknesses. For instance, Denver, even though they got bounced one game, but you know, we have some weaknesses in the secondary. We got some big name guys and some pass rushers. You know, Indianapolis did some things on defense because they felt that their quarterback was doing too much, and now all of a sudden they're in the AFC Championship game. So I'd like to see the Bengals say, you know what we have is good to very good, but it's not good enough. And I would like to see them say, hey, let's keep some of those good players we have, but let's also bring some young talented players in these positions that, number one, got decimated by injury, but number two, could use some pushing, competition, and or potential improvement.
If I had to pick for me, and Doc Ox in the chat room mentioned that I would say this, there's no question in my mind I would go with Brandon Tate, and I'm saying that very sarcastically. No, I would say for me it's a tie between Maualuga and Bowling. I'm probably leaning more towards Bowling because he's been a starter on the offensive line, and I think he did a really good job this year there for the Bengals. So I lean more towards Bowling. Maualuga close second because I think that there are going to be some really good linebackers that they can draft this year who are younger and faster. I mean, let's not skirt around that issue. Maualuga's no spring chicken. I mean, he's getting up there in age as well, and we also saw this year the health concerns starting to bubble up with him. So if I had to pick, I'm going to go with Clint Bowling as my unrestricted free agent to re-sign for the Bengals. Love to hear your thoughts, though. InsideTheJungle@spnt.tv is the email address. Feel free to send me who you think the Bengals should re-sign this offseason. Before we get out of here, let's talk about the NFLPA Bowl, AC. You spent the day out in Carson, California, home of the Los Angeles Galaxy. That's right, MLS talk here on Inside the Jungle. Talk to me about the NFLPA Bowl, what you saw today, and you were hanging out with our Cody Toomey from CincyJungle.com as well. Who did you see today, and let us know.
Yeah, I think what's kind of cool about this event is to be honest, it's a lesser scouting event, but I think that the NFLPA kind of embraces that, and I think they say, you know what, the Senior Bowl has kind of the lock, and the Combine obviously kind of have the lock on it, East-West Shrine game, but let's make this an event for some of those players who have either transferred schools, maybe have even had issues off the field, and/or let's play to the teams that really want to build their mid to late round selections and undrafted free agents. And I think they've done that strategically because of some of the CBA alterations that have been made to, practice squads on teams, and, teams kind of preferring to rely on younger talent. So I think kudos to them to create this type of event on that. But there are some big, relatively big name people in this event, and I went with Cody Toomey, who writes for the Cincy Jungle site, also is in the chat room tonight as well. And sidebar, if you want to talk draft or get some insight on some guys, that guy is he's a draft savant, and there's a lot of good guys out there, Joe Goodberry and whoever, but he's a great resource. I found myself, hey, I've heard of this guy, but I don't really know him, and Cody kind of filled me in. We got a couple interviews with some good guys after one of the practices, and it was a good event. A lot of different scouts. We saw a Bengals scout. I think it was the West Coast scout, Dave. I don't know how to particularly pronounce his last name. Radicevich. I don't know, but he was there, and a lot of different scouts were there today to be present at this event. So it was a high quality event put on by the Players Association. Mike Holmgren's coaching one team, Mike Martz is coaching another, and actually on Mike Martz's coaching staff, John Kitna, former Bengals quarterback, was coaching the quarterback group today. So I got to interview Oregon cornerback Troy Hill. He was a pretty prominent player in that national championship game, and Cody got to talk to a defensive end from Nevada. Brock Hecking is his name. So, keep an eye out for that on the site. We're going to put those up, and it was a good time today. We have another practice tomorrow that we're probably going to attend, and then the game itself is on Saturday. So, a lot of good stuff.
Awesome. So you had a good time. Did you get any good grub, or is that's actually coming up on Saturday for the game, isn't it?
Yeah, that's at the game. I wasn't. I went to the practices last year. I didn't get to go to the game, but from what Mickey told me, they take care of the media members, the scouts, all of that, especially at that actual game. So looking forward to that.
When is the game again?
Saturday, I believe it's at 1 Pacific, so 4 p.m. Eastern is the kickoff.
And is it televised? Is it on NFL Network?
It should be on ESPNU. They've been doing some ESPNU staff, including Bill Polian, were on site today. And they kind of were doing telecasts during the practices, so that should be on ESPNU, I believe, and the practice tomorrow, Thursday, will be on ESPNU as well.
Very cool. Well, congrats. I know you're looking forward to going to the practices and spending your rest of the week out in Carson, California for the NFLPA Bowl. And make sure you continue to check out CincyJungle.com for AC and Cody's updates on the NFLPA Bowl. All right, before we get out of here, let's do some shout-outs.
Shout-outs!
Scotty B, beam me up, man. Give me a shout-out for this week.
Well, I was going to go a different direction, but, I got to switch it up, and I got to give a shout-out to John in Kentucky, JFK, bringing it solid this week on the calls. I barely recognize this new John that's calling in. He's so positive. And, John brought some strong points to the show tonight, so shout out to John. Nice call.
Excellent. John has it's been refreshing, and I'm glad he's a big fan of the show and calls in every week. Thank you, John. Appreciate it. And good shout out, Scott. AC, how about you? Got a shout out for this week?
It's tough. I got a lot of different retweets and stuff today. It's tough to kind of pick a couple out. There's Eric Tomczyk, and then a gentleman, Martin Weinberg, who apparently has an interest in college athletics and whatnot, and they retweeted some of the stuff today. I'm gonna reiterate Cody Toomey though. Like I said, we went to lunch and we kind of talked throughout the day. We talked some Bengals football, and he was telling me exactly what he does to go through draft profiles and all of that. And there's a lot of good, knowledgeable guys like himself that are out there that don't have the national platform of ESPN, NFL Network, but they have some great insight, and he's one of them. So those are just a couple that kind of come to mind.
Yeah, that's a good shout out as well. I'm looking forward to hopefully speaking more with Cody throughout this offseason to talk about the draft and the combine and the scouting, because I know he does an excellent job for Cincy Jungle as well. Thanks. That's a good shout out, AC. I'm going to give a shout out to first of all Daniel Brooks. Daniel is a Manchester United fan across the pond, but more importantly a Bengals fan, who just happened to win the Inside the Jungle Patreon Fantasy Football League this season. So congratulations, Daniel, on your win. He says, can I get a shout out for my ace fiance, Katie? She got me a medal for winning the Inside the Jungle Fantasy League. And he sent me a picture of it. It looks fantastic. Sadly, we're too cheap here on the podcast to get you an award, Daniel. So thanks to your wife for doing our jobs for us. No, I'm kidding. We'll take care of you, Daniel, that's for sure. So congratulations. You get a shout out for winning the Fantasy League this year. If you would like a shout-out, give me a follow on Twitter at Nick Superling. You can also contribute to our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/NickSuperling or spnt.tv/Patreon. I'm also going to remind you we're doing a show survey, and Doc Ox, he wanted a shout-out here in the chat room. He says, I completed the poll. Does that give me my first shout-out from Inside the Jungle for 2015? Well, here's your shout-out, Doc Ox. Thank you for completing the survey. I want to know what you like and dislike about the show, how we can improve Inside the Jungle for 2015. So log on to spnt.tv/survey, and you can fill out and let us know what your thoughts are about this podcast. It goes a long way in helping us improve this show. Before we get out of here this week, I'm going to announce. I'm really excited about this. For those of you who know, the last 2 years I've gone to New Media Expo in January. The last 2 years. Well, this year it's being held in April 13th through the 16th in Las Vegas, and I will be speaking at New Media Expo. I can't believe that. That's pretty cool. I'm really excited about that. I'll be talking about podcasting out there in Vegas, and it should be a lot of fun. Really looking forward to it. So thanks to everybody at New Media Expo for picking me. And I'm on a panel with a couple other sports podcasters that I'm friends with, and really looking forward to that. So that's my cool news for this week. Thought I'd share that. And by the way, that speaking engagement would not have happened if it weren't for you fans and for this show. So I thank you tremendously for all your support of this podcast. And also, on another announcement note, the Podcast Awards. The last 3 years, this podcast has been a finalist in the Podcast Awards. And they kick off this coming Monday, and I'll be putting a video together on how you can nominate the show over the weekend, but they kick off on Monday. Your nominations will be very much appreciated for this podcast here in 2015. Hopefully we can be a finalist again for the 4th year in a row. That'd be really cool. So that's all the announcements and spiel I got for now. Final thoughts as we wrap up episode 180. Anthony Cosenza.
That's awesome that you're speaking, Nick. Very, very cool honor. And since it's a different time of year this year, I'm going to try and jet out there for a day if you don't mind. Obviously, don't have to get into the event, but would like to get out there and kind of check it out. I apologize if I'm a little sluggish tonight. It's been kind of a long day doing the whole deal, but great still talking Bengals and everything, even though their season's done. And obviously we're going to now start gearing up for free agency, which we know is going to be rip-roaring for the Bengals and the draft. So, yeah, that's about it.
I can understand your sluggishness, Anthony, as I have I've given up my Diet Dew habit. And I'm going through extreme caffeine withdrawal since Friday. It has been brutal, so I totally get it. And thank you for rushing back to do the show tonight. I really do appreciate it.
No problem. I'm stoked to do it.
Scotty B, thank you as always. Final thoughts as we wrap up episode 180?
Nick, congrats on the speaking engagement. That's awesome. That's just a product of the hard work and the great work you do for the show and do for the fans. So congrats on that. That is awesome. Otherwise, nothing else here.
Got any big plans for the weekend?
I have to work on Saturday and paint some things, so nothing very exciting here in the Bantel household.
Oof. Sorry, man.
That's right.
Oh, you know what? We need to do Playoff Survivor. I forgot.
I'm
I
out.
completely forgot. Were you out? Who did I pick? I can't even remember who I picked. Wow, I'm such a terrible host.
You sunk with me on the Broncos ship.
All right, I'm out. So AC,
I took Green Bay.
So you're good. You give us your team, your Playoff Survivor.
I'm going Indy.
Whoa! All right, he's going young.
I'm going Indy.
All right. So
We'll
AC
see at the bottom of the ocean, Anthony.
Well, we'll find out next Wednesday where AC's playoff Survivor team stands as we record the show. As I mentioned, every Wednesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern, right here at CincyJungle.com. You can also subscribe to the show and the on-demand content. iTunes Store, Stitcher Smart Radio, Pocket Casts. There are all kinds of ways you can subscribe to this podcast so that way you don't miss a single minute of Inside the Jungle. We missed Mickey Menser this week. We know he's down in Florida enjoying the nice warm weather as we're frigid here in Ohio. We all know all about your awesome weather out in California. We don't need to rehash that, AC. But again, thank you for everybody who's tuning in live. And again, if you want to get in touch, the email address insidethejungle@spnt.tv. You can follow me on Twitter as well. I'm at Nick Zuberling. Before we get out of here, special thanks to my associate producers, Andy Lanham, Larry Rolson, and Mike Vardy. Inside the Jungle is an SPNT production. For more information about our other podcasts, log on to spnt.tv and check out all the latest from the NFLPA Bowl and the Bengals over at CincyJungle.com. For Anthony, Scott, Mickey, I'm Soups. We'll see you next Wednesday night. Good day, everybody. All right. What's happening?
I was a little bit messy tonight. I apologize.
What? You were fine.
Oh, okay. I feel like I was kind of brain farting a little bit.
Nah. Excellent.
So you just walk around with a constant brain fart like me, then nothing seems wrong.
Talk about brain fart. Look at me. I didn't even start off the show right.
It's been a long day.
So Nick, when is the speaking engagement in Vegas?
April 13th through the 16th.
That is awesome, man.
Thank you. Yeah,
Is that midweek?
The expo starts on Monday and goes till I want to say Thursday.
Thursday? Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I still got to book my flight and hotel, but it's at the convention center, and it's the conference is actually I don't know what the term is, but it's going on at the same exact time as the National Association of Broadcasters conference, which is like a bunch of radio. It's basically a big radio conference. So it'll be kind of cool to network with some radio folks there too.
So if I go, like, if I want to go for one day or something, like, do I need to pay, or how does that work? Or if I would just want to go the day that you're speaking, or because I could probably pretty easily make that happen.
There's a thing, like, there's a guest pass.
Don't waste it on me. I'll go out there regardless. But if there's something I need to sign up for to get into something, I'll do it. Or pay for something, I don't mind doing it.
There's a ticket. I'm trying to think what.
That's that's like a 4-hour drive for me. It's pretty easy. So, and I love Vegas. You're not going to be seeing classy Anthony in Vegas, but
there's to get into the sessions.
I love how that was glossed over, by the way.
I'm sorry, I was trying to find a link to That's what happens when I don't have caffeine, man. My focus is gone. Sorry. The content creator pass is like it's $397. That would get you into like my session to hear me speak. But with I have a code that you could use to get you in for I think it's $100 off, which is kind of ridiculous, I know, because if you just want to come see my speech, then yeah, that kind of.
Does that play into, like, is there a specific hotel that has a rate for that week or anything, or?
Well, that's just for the conference. That's not even the hotel.
Yeah, I know, but like, what hotel is it at?
It's at the convention center.
Okay.
So it's at the actual like convention
center. There's not a specific hotel where it's like.
The hotel the last 2 years it's been at the Rio, but this year I'm gonna stay. My friend who I'm doing the panel with. He's staying at the Riviera, which is like right next door to the convention center. So I'll probably end up going to the Riviera.
Okay. I'm like I said, I'm gonna try and get out there. It's a much better time of year to get out there.
Let's come out for the podcast awards if we're finalists. And I don't know what those are.
Is that an entry fee for that thing?
The exhibit hall would be free.
Okay.
So yeah, that would get you the exhibit hall only pass is free, and it says free for a limited time only. So you might want to register since it's free. Can't hurt. That gets you into the exhibit hall, podcast awards, and the major keynote sessions. So that's not.
What's that under? What's that at?
I'll send you a link here.
Nick, watch out for Anthony when you're speaking, man. He's gonna have his shirt off. He's gonna be heckling you. His chest painted. He's gonna be a few deep after the craps table.
Just screaming Vegas!
Zoobs!
I love that. I go I've been. This will be my third year in a row going. My wife and I, we actually spent our honeymoon in Las Vegas.
It's dangerous, man.
I freaking love it.
I love it too, but it is. Oh man.
I can't stay out there for longer than like 4 days.
Oh, yeah. Three's my max. Three's my max for sure.
We went out there for 4 the other year, guys trip, and it was. I mean,
That's
it was
different.
awesome, but it was awesome but terrible at the same time.
It's honestly absurd. It's absurd what goes on out there.
I've never. I got back that time. I had like the cold sweats. Like I think it was withdrawal. It was,
yeah.
I think we slept for like a total of like 5 or 6 hours. It was terrible.
Yep. It's awesome, but you always have an awesome story. But then you get back, you're like, I took 4 years off my life easily.
Yeah.
Easily.
We had a guy go missing last year.
So did we.
It's really unbelievable.
We had last time we were out there with the guys trip. We were at it was before Wild Bill's Saloon is gone now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like O'Shea's now or something like that, or
no, O'Shea's was gone when we were out there. Wild Bill's they moved because O'Shea's had the beer pong, so we went to Wild Bill's for the beer pong. and we were out there. And my buddy was at the blackjack table. And I swear to God, I mean, he had a stack of chips like I've only seen on ESPN, and I mean, he was hammered. So we started though, like periodically people would just leave and go home. Well, in the morning we wake up, we still can't find him, and it's about time to leave for our flight, and he's walking around the room like tearing it up. We're like, what the hell are you doing? He's like, I can't find my chips. If you guys see my chips. Like, dude, you lost all your damn chips. You don't got any chips. He came home at like 6 in the morning that day, and he said he had to have the cabbie stop at a gas station with an ATM so he could get money because he didn't have money to pay the cabbie.
Oh my God.
He still tries to claim he thinks he walked away from the table because he thought he was going to puke and left his chips, but there's no way. He either lost them all or a hooker took them.
Right.
Confident of that.
We had a guy on one of our trips years ago. I remember seeing him, and I've never been a huge gambler, but a little bit. And we'd gamble a little bit, and he was at this poker table, and it was like, hey, how you doing, dude? Good. I'm up 200. And then we'd go out at the club. He sat at the table, go out at a club or a bar or whatever. We came back at like 3 in the morning, still sitting there, probably about 5-6 hours in. How you doing, dude? Dude, I'm killing it. 1,200 up, 1,500 up. I'm like, all right. Drank a little more till like 4. Went back and saw him. How you doing, dude? I'm like, way up, like $2,500. I'm like, oh, sweet. He comes back in our room at like 8 in the morning when we're still trying to like get the limited amount of sleep. Like, dude, just kill it and walk away or what? And he's all, no, I'm down 1,500. The dude lost. In a matter of a couple of hours, lost $3,500, dude. Like, jeez. I don't even know how you do that. Like, if I'm up a little bit, like I have the sense. I guess that's kind of the gambling addiction deal. But if I start winning a bunch, I'll throw like another hand out and I'll be like, this is the one. If I win more, I'll keep playing. If I lose this, I'm walking away. And he's just like, nope. He kept getting bad beat after bad beat, and he ended up losing in total about $3,500 or something. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, I wouldn't sleep that night.
Yeah, and he went from about, it was basically a 12-hour shift he pulled at the poker table. I mean, it was 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. I mean, it was unbelievable.
Oh man, poker, dude, and that takes forever.
Yeah, and guy wasn't leaving to go to the bathroom or anything. I'm like, how are you doing this? This is unbelievable. And drinking at the table. Like, I mean, obviously, it's one thing if you're like, oh, okay, I got a strong bladder. But if you're sitting there drinking, like, at some point in 12 hours, you got to pee. You know, right. I mean, I couldn't even believe it.
I learned how to play last year at the expo. I learned how to play craps.
Oh, that's fun, dude.
And I had a blast. And I ended up, I think I played poker for like an hour and lost like, I think it was down to my last $5. And just sat down at the craps table and worked it and got it all back. So, yeah, I love playing craps.
It's fun. It's a hard game to learn, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I was fortunate. I had a couple friends, podcaster friends, who were showing me the ropes. And, you know, we weren't exactly on the strip. We were at the Rio, so, like, yeah, I mean, it's not like it was a crowded place.
Well, yeah, you get spots at each table, I'm sure. Yeah, that's solid. Scott, what's your game?
I don't do much gambling at all. When I'm out there, I do blackjack's pretty much the only one I play.
Yeah, that's solid.
Craps looks like fun, but I have zero idea how to play poker. I'm not a big poker fan.
Yeah. I used to do poker, and then I evolved a little bit into blackjack and roulette and all that stuff. And then poker, like you guys said, it takes too much time. I mean, it's like,
I like blackjack too.
Yeah. Yeah, craps is fun, but I kind of don't really know how to play.
The first year I was out there, I was playing blackjack, and this woman and her daughter were coming from either a rehearsal dinner. I think it was a rehearsal dinner, and they weren't like drunk, but they weren't like there. And the woman clearly didn't know what she was doing. Like, she was okay, but she was like obviously questioning. They're like, "What should I do?" You know, that type of player. And I was on a really hot streak. I was doing really well. I was up a lot, and then she hit when she shouldn't have, and we all ended up busting because of it. And like from that point, I ended up going from like up 200 down. I lost it all. Like, you gotta be kidding me! I'm not one of those guys that like can just walk away. Like it's like, oh well.
Yeah.
You ruined it.
Whenever I go out there, I have my gambling pile of money. It's not a huge pile, and when that's gone, I'm done.
Yeah, you got a budget for it. You know, I mean,
Right.
if this goes, I'm done or whatever. You know, have you guys ever been on a cruise?
Yes.
Okay, so cruise is really bait and switchy, dude. Like you go out there and especially if you go international waters, it's like, hey, we turn on the tables, okay, come on, and you go first. You know, if you go on a 5 or 7 day cruise, first 3 or 4 days, you're like, dude, I'm killing it, I'm winning, and you go on the 6th or 7th day, and it's like lose. It's like bad beat after bad beat, and it's like, dude, you totally flipped a switch as we're coming back home, didn't you? I mean,
Those magnetic cards on.
exactly, dude, exactly.
You don't see him actually opening up the cards, huh?
No. It's funny, dude. I had a I remember I had this blackjack. I had 2 10s, and the rest of the table was showing kind of garbage the rest of the way, even the dealer. I'm like, okay, split them. And I had 20 and 20, like, so I had 2 20s going. I was like, all right. And I had a decent amount of money down going, and everybody else lost, and the dealer threw down a card, and they had 21 on, and I had 2 20s. I'm like, dude, and it was like the 6th day of the cruise, and I put down like a bunch of money. I'm like, this sucks. I'm out.
That's the worst.
Yeah, it's total bad beat.
You got to be freaking kidding me.
Yeah, and scraped it together with like a 2 and a 7 and a like. It was just ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good time. I haven't been out there since then. It may have been 2 years ago.
No, you should come out. For a finalist, you should come out.
So is the final night, the Thursday night, is that the actual podcast, or is it Wednesday night?
I'll have to look. I don't know if they have the schedule up yet. My guess is the podcast awards would be
towards the end of the week, right?
the Monday to probably Wednesday night is my guess.
Okay.
I'm
I'm gonna try and shoot down if you don't mind, dude.
No, absolutely.
At least to say hey. And
You should come, man.
Be a degenerate.
You should come and hobnob with the other podcasters. I know that the
When is that? When's the podcast awards? What time of the year?
they'll be at the conference.
Oh, in April?
Yeah.
Oh,
The nomination period starts Monday, but they'll announce the winners at the award show on. It doesn't say what night. My guess is it would be the 15th.
yeah. I probably won't be able to. I'll have a 1-month-old, so I bet you the wife would not let me get out.
Even more reason to get out. Go. Get out now. Tell her if you don't come to Vegas, I will fire you from the podcast.
Ask Josh for a stipend, dude.
Yeah, that's right. I need some of that Cincy Jungle stipend.
Yeah. Nick, I gotta ask you, not to totally change the subject, but are you a oh gosh, what's his mug? The coach of Ohio State, because he's a Bowling Green guy.
Huge fan.
Are you or no?
Not really.
Well, I can't think of his freaking name.
Urban Meyer.
Urban Meyer.
Thank you. Good Lord, I'm like Nick Saban. No, that's not the guy. Okay, so you're not fond of him.
Why are you asking?
Well, you're a Bowling Green guy. He coached Bowling Green for a while, so I was just kind of
He was
curious.
the coach. Yeah, he was the coach of BG when I was a student. His first 2 years as a college coach, and he took. We were an absolutely horrible football team, and we went 8-3 in his first year, and I think 9-3 in his second year.
Okay.
And yeah, we were like pumped because we hadn't seen a winning football team in forever at Bowling Green. And I remember we were sitting down in the postseason press conference in the media room, and I was standing 10 feet from him when the question was asked if he would be coming back. And he said to us, "I've got unfinished business here at Bowling Green." And then the next day, he was announced as the head coach at Utah. So
was it Bowling Green, Utah, Florida, Ohio State? Was that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Just curious. I mean, he is an Ohio guy, so that's why I was curious.
Bengals next, man.
I wouldn't mind. You know what? I will say this: if they don't, if they let Meyer go, or not Meyer go, if they let Marvin go, I would not be opposed to giving Urban Meyer a shot. The guy just wins games.
Do you like Saban? If you were to start either a college or a pro team, Saban or Meyer?
I go Meyer.
Take Meyer. I just despise Nick Saban. I think he's a dick.
And plus, he's already failed in the NFL, so we know that.
Yeah.
That may not be the right reason to hire or not hire a coach in college football, but that would be high on my list. I just wouldn't want to deal with that prick.
Well, I need to go and get ready for work, gentlemen. Feel free to continue to chat here in the chat room.
All right. See you, buddy.
Enjoy the NFLPA Bowl, man.
All right.
Look forward to your coverage.
I appreciate you asking. I'll give more updates.
Scotty, take it easy.
Nick, have fun at work, man.
I can't wait.
It's so exciting sounding.
Yay! Especially
Scott,
when you have caffeine.
Yay, PB&J.
Scott, I got a couple if you do.
Yeah, I got a few, man.
All right. So you got a 1-month-old. I didn't know that.
Well, no, I will when my wife's
she-
due in mid-March. So
She's freaking preggers, dude.
oh yeah,
Can I ask you a question?
yeah.
Well, I won't be weird, but how old are you and your wife, if you don't mind me asking?
We're both 33.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes me feel better.
Yeah.
My wife and I are 32, and we don't have any yet, and I'm kind of like, we're both kind of like, we got to get on it, but we both have careers, and it's like,
Well, the first one was like we weren't necessarily trying, but we weren't also necessarily not trying.
a little oopsie.
Yeah, same reason. It was like not sure if we're ready, but Father Time's not waiting for us.
Do you know? Are you a couple that likes to know the gender beforehand, or what?
Nope. The first one was a surprise, and this one will be as well. So.
Oh my God! I seriously hate you.
Why?
How's anybody supposed to buy you guys gifts, dude?
Well, see, that's the beauty is that would be.
Aside from an inside the jungle onesie, let's get you an inside the jungle onesie.
That's a good point. Now that we have the logo, yeah. Well, I would say on the first one, it's always nice that if people don't know what it is, because otherwise, like at the showers, you end up getting so many clothes and stuff like that, as opposed to like the stuff you need, like the bottles and it's amazing the amount of shit you need. I mean, good Lord, you have to have another room in your house. I think just to house all the shit for a child that's like, 7 pounds. You got 800 pounds of shit for a 7-pound child.
First one was a girl. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
I got it.
Okay. So you're kind of hoping for a Scott Jr. Let's be honest about this.
Oh yeah, I mean,
All right.
every guy's always hoping for the boy.
A Scott, an SBJ. Just Scott Banter.
Right. Yeah.
Do you have
names?
names?
It would not be a junior.
Do you have names?
Yeah, we do. We have. We haven't even talked about them recently. So for boys, the ones we had last time were Owen and Connor. I think they're still the top two. And for girls, I think the only one we still have at the current moment is Caroline. So we had two names for girls, and the first one was Jillian. So.
And what's your daughter's name?
Jillian.
Okay.
Yeah. So
with a J.
With a J.
Okay.
Like like the workout lady, Jillian Michaels.
Yeah, but not like her. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but not as douchey. I talk about that all the time with her. We can't be as douchey as Jillian Michaels. So it's funny.
And-
I started. Have you ever done that T25?
What is it?
T25.
No.
It's like P90X or.
See, I've done P90X. Yeah.
Okay, it's the one with that Sean T guy.
Okay.
And so I started that this week, and boy, I'm not gonna lie, I was winded. But she came downstairs, and then she had to do it with me, and she looks like a 2-year-old on speed, jumping around, trying to do whatever was going on. It was hilarious.
And how far along is she?
My wife, she's at 32 weeks.
Okay.
So, we're like a month out from being on get ready to go time.
Yeah, it's 2 months and you're basically in the clear, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Congrats. I didn't know.
Yeah, remember that there was that show where I had to I disappeared for the whole show.
Oh yeah. You came in and you were like, all right, I gotta go.
I all of a sudden disappeared. Yeah, because I thought we were gonna have to run to the hospital. Yeah.
That's right. She's doing well though.
Yeah, she's doing well. So.
How'd you guys meet?
We are actually our brothers were best friends in high school, so we've actually known each other since high school.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, so we've been together for quite some time.
The history.
That's right.
How long you guys been married?
It's coming up on 5. It'll be 5 years this year.
Okay. And how old's your daughter?
2.5.
Okay.
She's 27 months.
Okay. All right.
So. Yeah. So.
That's awesome, man. You're gonna have two at very fun ages, dude. That's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, I'm trying to teach her the changing the diaper. I feel like we need to utilize her to wake up in the middle of the night and take care of the baby, so I don't have to wake up. Having a little helper, So, yeah, I don't think that'll work too well, but a man can dream.
Yeah, my wife is just. She owns her own business. She's very successful and everything, but she really, at the same, on one hand, she really wants a baby, but at the same time, it's like, well, I'm opening another store, and I got, all this stuff where she can't, it has to be timed right, but
yeah,
I don't know, man. She, it's
like
I feel like, yeah, it's like, yeah, I don't know.
What does she do?
She owns a women's clothing store, and her mom owns one in a mall. She owns one in a different mall, and then they're opening another one in an outlet center. And they're the only non-national tenant in the outlet center, which is pretty cool. And it's based out of South Orange County, so a lot of people here actually know their company, but they do a lot of online business too. So I even told Nick, I'm like, damn, man, after around Valentine's Day, let my wife advertise and
yeah,
pay a little money and advertise for online stuff. But no, it sounds tacky, but it's cool stuff. It ranges anything from high school girls looking to get a homecoming dress to, casual wear to whatever, and home knickknacks, you could put on your mantle or whatever. So it's cool stuff. She found a cool little niche, and
that's awesome.
She's pretty successful, man. I'm pretty stoked,
That's awesome. I'll tell you, man, you're never ready. When I got the news, when she told me that the P test came up positive, I damn near shit my pants. The funny part was we were going to Chicago to visit my brother that weekend, and we were riding up with her brother.
Are you from there?
No, I'm from Cincinnati, but my
Okay.
brother moved up there a couple years back.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
Oh shit, that's what I meant to talk to Nick about was the draft. I'll talk about it next week. So we were riding up with her brother, and so I come home from work, and it's like basically we had our shit packed. It was a drop your bags, and we're heading into the car. And she's like, "Hey, come here, I gotta tell you something." And she tells me, I'm like, "Holy shit, Sticks!" And then then we gotta go sit in the car for 5 hours. We're not telling anyone. I'm like, in the
What do
back.
I do? What do I do? What do I do?
I'm like in the back playing Angry Birds. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? So,
But it was like, it sounds like it was kind of like pull the goalie, and it
oh yeah,
wasn't necessarily like let's have a kid, but it wasn't like, hey, we're trying not to have a kid. It was just like, hey, if it happens, it
Exactly.
happens. Yeah, yeah, okay,
exactly.
yeah.
The second one we were trying it. I think it worked better not trying. So that's why I mean,
There you go. There you go.
when you try to time them, it never works. So
That's awesome, man. Though, congrats.
yeah,
That's awesome.
thanks.
So you think by the time April rolls around, it's a no go?
I would, I'm not afraid to ask, but I'm not. I'd be shocked. I'd be shocked if I got the go ahead with a 2.5-year-old and a 1-month-old. I got a feeling I'll be told to where to shut up.
Dude, you know it's weird.
This microphone I'm talking into right now may get shoved up my ass.
You know it's weird, dude. Like, it's really funny. Like, as a single guy, I don't know if you ever watched the show, but Everybody Loves Raymond was on. It was like, yeah, it's kind of funny, whatever. And then, like, as you get married or serious relationship or whatever, and you kind of like see family dynamics and involvement of people and all this stuff, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, I don't know if you watch that show or not, but it's like, it's pretty spot on. I mean,
Yeah.
it's obviously accentuated, but it's pretty spot on, dude.
Yeah. Oh no, I mean I didn't watch it much, but absolutely, it is. Yeah, like I said, I will run it by her. I just gotta be careful. As we're in high hormone time right now, and we'll be
Which day it is? Yeah.
through April, so I gotta be careful on when I fly that one past.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you go to games this year?
I went to.
Did you go to Denver?
I did not go to that one.
I know you went to Indy,
went
right?
to the playoff game. May have overserved myself.
That's all right.
That game.
That's all right.
I went to the Jacksonville game.
That's solid. That's a solid one.
Buddy of mine has really nice tickets, like end zone, about 10 rows up, and those were pretty cool. And then I went to the Tennessee game. So
Damn.
the two games I went to had really nice weather. Both of those games were like
And awesome results.
right. Yep. So yeah. Did you? I know it hasn't come out what dates they are, but you're still kicking around some of the West Coast games next year, right?
Well, we're doing that, and we did every year. Like, the last time I was out was, I want to say 06, 05 or 06, and I remember one of the last games I went to was, I know for sure I went 05 against Minnesota, and Dante Culpepper was the quarterback, and Cincinnati killed him like 45-8 or something. Like it was like rad. I went to another Baltimore game in Cincinnati, and it was like 20. I mean, this is like when Nate Webster was the starting linebacker. So this tells you, this tells you how long it's been. But we've been talking about like, dude, we got to go back. And then they've been playing a little more recently. Like they've been playing out here, especially San Diego, where it's like, oh my God, that's a no-brainer. So this year, it's like Arizona, San Francisco, Oakland, and even Denver, I think. So it's like, oh, we got to go to some of those. But we want to go back out And I was talking to Cody about this today. It's just like, dude, we want to go back out. It's just like, I mean, it's a jaunt, but
Oh yeah, and flight. I know, like I said, a buddy of mine lives out in LA, and they come in a bunch because they have family here. So I know the flights are pretty pricey. He's able to schedule it with like work, so most of the time like work picks up the flight.
Are you thinking about coming out to some of these West Coast ones, or what? Or not really?
I don't know about those. We are kicking around the idea of the Denver game because my brother-in-law used to live in Denver, and we know a few people out there. So it's like one of those places where we'd probably have a place to stay as well. That in Denver's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So I know we had originally talked about that one. I guess it'll depend on when that game is. But
Well, I'll hit you up, dude. Whatever games I go to. Hopefully we can meet up. Like, I want to meet up with you. I want to meet up with Nick. I mean, I've met Mickey not at a game. I've met Cody not at a game, but
yeah,
I'd like to do that, dude. It'd be fun.
Yeah, I think we should do like some sort of. I don't know if you'd be able to do it, but some sort of CJ, meetup would be a good time. That's why I was throwing around the idea to Nick because Nick and Drew Lachey just opened up a sports bar in a really like cool new revived area in downtown Cincinnati, and it's been getting really good reviews. And I know they're both huge Bengals fans, so I was thinking like draft. It'd be cool to do the show from their sports bar.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be a lot of fun, and he liked that idea. That's what I meant to talk to him about today.
I hate to like say it, but when we first went out there, because we've never been to Cincinnati, and we're from Southern California, we're like, what do we expect from a downtown area? But we went there, dude. People were cool. The whole vibe was cool. I really like that area, downtown Cincinnati. Like, was it Fountain Square?
Yeah.
That whole area, dude. It was really cool. It was really cool.
Yeah, the cool thing is now is, there used to not be a whole lot going on downtown, and they've made a real big push over the last, 5 years. They got tons of, they put in tons of residential. What they've been doing is they're really cool areas.
High-rise apartments or something, or what?
No, what they've been doing is they've been taking all these, there's so many old vacant buildings, and it's all real cool architecture, and what they've been doing is just remodeling all of them. They were all vacant. They stripped them out, and they're turning them into condos and that. And like where Lachey's bar is, it's called Over the Rhine. And I mean, it used to be the worst of the worst of Cincinnati. It's like if you were white, you did not want to go there at all. I mean, it was not safe. I would say for anyone not safe, but especially if you were like a white person, it was not safe.
Wow.
But it was like the largest collection of, I think, German architecture in the country, and it's this. The buildings are phenomenal. What they've been doing is that these companies have been buying up all these awesome old buildings that were just run down, and they've been gutting them and building restaurants, bars, awesome expensive condos.
That's so rad. It's
really cool. So there's actually, when you were here, there probably wasn't a whole lot of nightlife or bars or restaurants in the immediate downtown area, and now there are. Now there's a lot of fun things to do.
We went like September-ish, October-ish, so they had a downtown Oktoberfest, and then the big place downtown was Rock Bottom.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I used to work there in college.
No way. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, so we went there, and then obviously walking around down Fountain Square and all that stuff. But that's really, I'm sure that's probably a sign of the economy too. Like, hey, these things are cheap. Let's buy them. Let's renovate them, and the whole thing.
Yeah, it's really cool. And they've built a whole bunch of new breweries now downtown, because it used to be a real big brewer area for brewing.
Yeah.
And a lot of the brewers shut down, and they've come back recently. And so there's a lot of cool microbrews around the town too. And,
that's awesome.
So yeah, there's a lot.
Is the Lachey place cool?
I haven't been there. It just opened last week. Like, I mean,
Okay.
it's that new. So it looks cool. It's not that big. Most of the places down there aren't. But I follow Nick and Drew Lachey on Twitter because I tried to get them to join our CJ our picks this year.
Okay.
But not that I'm a huge Nick and Drew Lachey fan, but I just thought it would be cool.
Oh, I mean, dude's cool. Dude's cool. I get it. He's cool,
Their
dude.
followers. So, but no, I haven't been down there yet. I will probably go down there sometime.
Nice.
But yes, sir. So, anything going on this weekend?
I am. I'm going to the actual game.
Oh yeah, that's right. The game's this weekend.
Yeah, it's. I mean, part of me is like, dude, sacrifice of the Saturday. But
Don't they have like all you can drink for the media members?
I don't know about that. I like I said, I didn't go to the game last year. Mickey did. But Mickey said they took good care of him, and
When's
whatever.
he coming out?
He's not coming out.
I thought he was. I
Yeah,
thought
he
the three of
said-
you guys were going.
He set the whole thing up, and he said last minute he's got some some connection in Florida with meeting astronauts and all this stuff, and his daughter's really into space, and yeah, I was like, oh, I mean, I get it. I'm kind of
I was
interested,
wondering.
but
I was wondering
like,
what you were talking about when you guys said astronauts.
yeah, dude, he all of a sudden was like, nope, can't do it, and I was like, all right, well, Cody and I'll get it done, but
Okay.
it was cool. It was cool.
Awesome. That sounds like a lot of fun. I'm hoping to. If he goes down to Taste of Cincinnati this year, I'm hoping to.
I'll
tag
hit you.
along.
I'll hit you up if we go for sure out there. And he's got the hookup. It's funny, man. He's a guy who's like, yeah, get us passes, and then like, if he gets a pass, he's like, well, I might go, I might not. And it's like, dude, you did all this work. I mean, come on. But we'll hit you up. He's the guy, especially for you guys living out there. I mean, he's the guy that's got the whole hookup there. So
Yeah, I talked to him about if he does the Taste of Cincinnati this year, or not the Taste of Cincinnati, Taste of the NFL.
yeah,
Going along with him for that. So, and I usually do when we go down there. There's a number of games we'll go down and we'll tailgate and not stay at the game. We don't live far from downtown, so a lot of times we'll tailgate and just cab home. And so I always meet up with him for the tailgate.
did you meet up with him in Indy?
No, I was trading texts with him. I think he was on the other side of the stadium.
Okay.
They were in a bar. We were outside, and we ended up ducking into a bar because it was so damn cold.
Yeah.
Like, it was so the wind, man. Jesus. Lucky that game was inside.
Yeah.
So, but oh well. Well, buddy, I better hop
All
off.
right. Yeah, I got it too. But good chatting.
Sounds good, man. Hey, have fun at the NFLPA Bowl and tell Cody I said hello.
All right. Thanks, bud. Good chatting.
See you, man.
See ya.